Hello and welcome. I'm Jen Rogers, and today we're going to be talking about a tool many small business owners don't even know they need, and that is insurance. We're joined today by Steve Wilkins. He's Hiscox partner and SVP, head of Casualty at Hiscox, and we're going to talk about how companies can protect themselves, sometimes from things that are out there that they don't even realize. Before we get started, help me do my job. Ask Steve some questions. You can put them in the chat on the right. We also have a poll over there, and we would love to hear from you because it really makes it more of a conversation, and we want to address the concerns that you have out there. So Steve, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to be with you, Jen, and great to be in front of all the small businesses out there.
So let's start just kind of 10,000 feet, and just how do small businesses tend to think about insurance? You've been in this area for a long time. Do you find that they overestimate, they underestimate their need? What is it?
Yeah, well, Jen, let's face it, no small business owner is waking up in the morning thinking, I can't wait to go and buy my insurance today, or I can't wait to speak to my insurance carrier. This isn't what drives small businesses. They don't want to be thinking about this. And really, in my experiences, small business owners don't tend to think about their insurance very often, and it's not something they give a lot of thought to. Really, what we see is small businesses start to think about their insurance when maybe a client's asking for proof of insurance, or they need it as part of a contract to win a project or to win a quote. But really, it's an afterthought rather than something which you set out at the beginning of the journey, and that's absolutely fine. Our belief at Hiscox is that small businesses should be focused on running their business, and they should be partnering with an insurance carrier who can help them get the right coverage and think about that. And it's that piece of really dealing with a small business insurance expert is going to help the small businesses buy the insurance they need.
So let's get to a question that we have in the chat. Andrea Martin putting one in here, which is how soon should a company get insurance? I mean, that's a good question. It's like, do you need to get a little bit deeper into having run your company before you really start diving into this issue, or is it something you need from day one?
Yeah, I'd really recommend day one. It's rare, but it does happen that we literally see businesses start on a Monday and they're ringing the insurance carrier on a Friday with a claim that they've had. These accidents and these issues can crop up at any time. So you really shouldn't be waiting to put insurance in until down the road. Now, if you find a good company, they will allow you to buy your insurance 30 days out from starting your business. So you can have insurance in place even before you start your first project. But really, today is where you should be doing it, from day one, as soon as you possibly can.
So Hiscox really started looking at the U.S. small business market and seeing that it was underserved in 2010. The company's now sold over 500,000 small business insurance policies online. Mm-hmm. So you have a large swath of kind of research that you know what companies are doing. So what have you seen in terms of how businesses miscalculate their risk the most? Like, what are the top mistakes that you're seeing made?
Yeah, well, these business owners are experts in what they're doing. So what we typically see is they have a really good understanding of their kind of area or their niche, and really kind of have a good grasp of what could go right or wrong within normal practice, normal business, if you like. I guess where the miscalculation comes is when small business owners don't think about the surprise claims, or maybe they don't think fully about the cost of those claims which come up. So I guess a good example of that might be we see plenty of claims from contractors. Like, imagine a carpenter. Maybe he's doing some renovation in the house and they accidentally stand on a sprinkler head and the sprinkler system turns on and you flood the entire building and you damage a lot of electronic equipment. And the cost for those claims can be large because the electronic equipment is expensive. But actually the cost of settling those claims covers as much in terms of legal costs and making the client whole as it does in just replacing the equipment. And it's that piece of understanding the legal costs and the full cost of a claim that we typically see small business owners not fully understand as we're going into these types of events.
I want to remind everyone to go take the poll. Thank you all for the questions. These are coming in and we're going to get to them. So thank you and keep them coming. Just checking out the poll. What do you think is the biggest risk to your business? And right now we have lawsuits at 50% and then a cyber attack at 30%. And in the chat, we do have some questions, I think, around both of those areas. And just, again, this is just kind of a broad question that's coming out in the chat is what kind of insurance are we talking about, right? It's like umbrella policies, E&O. What are you trying to say are the insurance categories that people really need to be examining here?
Yeah, of course. It's a question we get a lot. Obviously, every business is different, so every business is going to have different insurance needs. I would say there's three core policies that any small business should be looking at. The first of that is professional liability. It's sometimes called E&O, or errors and omission policy. That's really important, especially if you're in a professional advice giving type role. So an architect or an accountant, perhaps, you really should be thinking about that professional liability insurance. The second kind of core coverage we talk about is general liability. That's going to protect you against lawsuits coming from slips and trips or falls or damaging someone else's property, as well as things like slander and product liability. So it's a really important coverage if you're interacting with anybody or you're selling any products. That's general liability. And then the third one, obviously really key for small businesses as soon as you're starting to employ anyone and you have payroll, is workers' compensation. And that's really protecting your workers and ensuring that we're operating safely and that people are protected if something goes wrong. There are a myriad of other coverages which people hear about. I think I saw in the chat D&O, I think I saw EPL, I saw umbrella. We could talk for hours on all the different insurance coverages. I would say those three core ones are the ones that people should be investigating. They're probably where people start. Beyond that, find an insurance agent or speak to one of the helpful team members at Hiscox, and we can explain what those coverages are and where they might fit into your business. But really, it's about thinking about the risks you're facing in the business and buying the protection which is right for you and the size and shape of your business.
So when you think about the risks, has the shift to remote work changed insurance needs at all? Because I mean, obviously we've changed a lot of the ways that we work and where we work right now. What's changed on the insurance end?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And we get lots of questions of, well, now I'm remote, do I still need the insurance I was purchasing? Because obviously it was very much a different world pre-pandemic when everyone was still in offices or places of work. I say you 100% still need the insurance. The risk profile has changed, it hasn't gone away. And there's, what you might be buying might change. So if you think of maybe a pre-remote working situation where you had a single office, maybe with 20 people working in that, you had good oversight around your colleagues and what they were doing, you'd have good controls in place, you're probably using work-based laptops, everything's very secure and easily understood. Now we're in a remote working world, you've suddenly got unsupervised people working on probably home computers with very different risk profile for things like cybersecurity and everything else. But the advice we always give is if you're interacting with anyone, if you're giving advice, if you're selling any products, doesn't matter if that's remote, digital, in person, you really should be buying insurance. It's more about risk profile changing than going away.
There is definitely a focus on cybersecurity. Again, that is one of the poll answers. It's second right now to lawsuits. Keep taking the poll. We'll check on it again. Michelle Anthony, though, asking, how daunting is it to get cybersecurity policies for the first time? So just in terms of the risk that is out there and companies being able to protect themselves, what's provided, and then how challenging is it to get those products?
Yeah. So to get the cyber insurance and the protection that comes around that, super simple. There are many providers, including Hiscox, who will sell you a cyber insurance policy. It can take less than 10 minutes online. The questions you're going to be asked are pretty simple, and you can buy that and have the protection in place really from today moving forwards. In terms of what you're getting, typically in a cyber insurance product, there's a couple different things there. Yes, it's an insurance policy, so you're going to be protected if something goes wrong, and there's a payout mechanism there. What I really recommend people also do is look for a policy which offers some protection as well, so to help you stop those events happening in the first place. And that could be as simple as security tools all the way through to backup and multi-factor authentication. But I recommend looking at a policy which will cover not just the insurance payout, but also to help small business owners protect themselves and not have these events in the first place. That's really where we're trying to get to.
So what does a typical cyber event look like for a small business, right? I think sometimes we see the headlines of some major cyber breach at a Fortune 500 company, but when you're talking about somebody that's got a small business, maybe they're working out of their house, like, what are the cyber events that you're seeing pop up?
Yeah, well, the most common one we see, especially in small businesses, is ransomware attacks, right? So, and I think we've all kind of gone through like the phishing emails, and we've seen the scams. An email comes in, it looks very real. They're getting really, really good at impersonating companies and individuals now. Typically, there'll be a link or an attachment which you click on. You click on that, something runs on your computer, and before you know it, your computer's locked, and there's a demand for some kind of ransom payment. So that's ransomware in a nutshell. definitely the most frequent type of event we see in the cyberplace, and the cost of those events are going up. I think over the last 12 months, we've seen the average cost of a ransomware claim go up 80%, up to around $18,000 to settle and remediate that claim. But that's the biggest one we see for small businesses. It's not the big data hacks which you might read about on the news for the Fortune 500 companies. These are small phishing attacks which will result in a ransomware attack for a small business.
So in terms of the size of a company and the insurance they need, you said it's really good to have from day one, but does every size company need it from day one and need it? What about just the sole proprietor, consultant, working out of their home?
Yeah, everyone needs it. And what you should be looking for is an assurance policy which flexes with you. And clearly, the insurance needs for your 100-person large company are going to be very, very different to your sole proprietor working out of their home office, maybe providing some consulting expertise. So it's about finding a policy which is fit for purpose for your business, is tailored to your business. So you're not overpaying for that coverage, because we don't want that and we can't afford that. But having something which is fit for purpose for a sole proprietor. But the insurance is important. As soon as you're offering advice, interacting with anyone, selling a product, you become liable for your actions and could end up in a situation where you need that legal support that an insurance product gives you.
It's interesting, just looking in the chat, there are just some comments about how different insurance products have gotten more expensive. Somebody's in Napa Valley and they're talking about the fire insurance there, and somebody else talking about in California some of other parts of California, the issues they're seeing. So what is the cost benefit analysis? Like, how do you walk through a small business owner when they're trying to figure out what to buy, but they're also trying to figure out how to pay themselves, right? Anyone that's ever run a small business knows how lean and bootstrapping all of this is. So what is the cost benefit analysis of having insurance for your company?
Yeah, and we're all realizing the rising costs of everything in the economy at the moment, and I'm sure insurance is another cost going on for these small businesses. Let's focus on liability insurance, because that's really, I guess, the key area that small businesses will be seeing those costs, and probably the key product that they're purchasing. Typically, you can get a small business policy in the kind of $700 to $800 range for an annual policy, which will give you most of the coverage you will need. The way we think about that internally is, that's 1 to 2 hours of an attorney's time if you need to engage with a lawyer and you need some advice in some way. But realistically, when we get into these claims and we engage the legal experts that we have available for us, we're having good quality experts for many, many hours. And as soon as you get into that claim, an insurance policy is going to pay itself back pretty quickly. But the way to think about this for me is, if I buy small business insurance and I get to the end of the year and I've not used that, that's a good outcome. Right? That means that nothing's bad's happened this year and I've not had to claim on my insurance. And so if I've had to pay a little bit to get in that situation, I'm pretty happy. So it is a cost. We do realize that small businesses are tight, but the costs of not having that in place are far, far larger.
Do you ever find that actually seeing small businesses operate with insurance can lead to more business, that it's not just a cost? And how have you seen that play out?
Yeah, this is one of the great things that we love about being a specialist small business insurer, because we get to talk to lots of our customers about this. And something we get feedback a lot is that having business insurance is really kind of like a badge of honor, especially for our small businesses who are just starting out in the first place. We see that it gives those businesses kind of a trust and verified type status when they're going for contracts or they're bidding for projects. It lets their clients know that they are legitimate, that they are protected in some ways. And really, we see it as a good avenue into winning business. And certainly, as you start engaging with larger businesses, it will become a requirement that they expect you to have some kind of coverage. And I think a really good example of that is Amazon, who are now requiring many of their sellers to have some kind of insurance in place to even be active on their marketplace platform. So the need for insurance and its necessity to be doing business is only going to increase in coming years.
What about when your business changes? Because I do think this happens for small businesses a lot. I mean, let's just say you are working on with Amazon on something, and sometimes it's going gangbusters and you're getting bigger. How often does a small business have to reevaluate their insurance needs? Are they doing that all the time? Is it an annual checkup that you have to do? Like, how do you figure that out?
I'd really recommend applying the 20% rule. So if your business is growing by more than 20%, if 20% of what you're doing has changed, or maybe if your payroll is increased by 20%, that's a really good kind of test to say, you know what, I should be talking to the insurers. I should be checking if my coverage is still good. I should be testing and seeing whether there's a different product I need to be buying to make sure I'm adequately protected. But 20% is a good rule of thumb. But yeah, annually checking what you're purchasing is great. You know, if nothing has changed in your business, you should be able to keep going with the insurance you've got and it still be appropriate. But that 20% is a good asset test to re-engage and check what you're buying is still appropriate.
Got it. A question in here from Wade McQuart, which kind of goes to working with the big company since we're talking about Amazon. What risks should be managed by insurance versus transferred to the counterparty via the allocation in the contract, especially when it's a small business dealing with a large one? So I guess, like, how can you push stuff off, or do you need to make sure you're protected here?
Yeah, you know, in an ideal situation, every small business will get to write their own contracts, and they get to have a very clear definition of who's responsible for what and where that risk sits. But you know, we live in the real world, and we know that small businesses often are not in the negotiation seat for where contracts sit. So there are some general principles that can be recommended, especially when you're thinking about using subcontractors or there's multiple parties involved. And you know, you should be able to talk to your insurance agent or look on hiscox.com and you can find those top tips. But realistically, small businesses aren't often in that driving seat for the contract, and that's why a good insurance policy is really, really going to help, because it's going to fill in those blanks. It's going to make sure that you're not stood holding the bag at the end of the day if something does go wrong.
I'm just curious because Hiscox USA, you know, as I said, started in 2010. You were really disrupting the business insurance piece, doing this online. So you've been at it for a while now. And I guess through economic cycles, a pandemic, what's changed that's informative for small business owners now to also realize how you've grown and what you're offering to what they need to be thinking about as well?
Yeah, well, it's certainly since we started in the US in 2010, I guess we were kind of laughed at a little bit in the idea that we'd be selling business insurance, a really specialized product, direct to consumers online. That was an odd thing for us to be doing in the market. But you know, we've seen certainly over the last decade, consumer behavior has kept moving towards online retail, online purchases. And the fact of the matter is, so many of us do most of our living now online, be that banking or shopping, wherever it might be. So insurance to me is just part of that. You know, one of the key concepts that we think about is human where it matters, but digital where it counts. So yes, we want to be able to give our customers and small businesses a great digital experience. We want to make this as easy as possible for you. If you need to buy insurance on a Saturday evening when no call centers are open, we want you to be able to do that. But we also recognize that needs to be backed up with humans. And when you're going for a very complex claim and you need to understand your legal position and whether support, you don't want to be doing that online. You want to be able to speak to someone and have a proper conversation around where you sit. So, you know, it's a real learning experience, and you know, the US market for insurance is changing, slower in the business side than personal lines, but I think we'll keep seeing it. Greater availability to small businesses, easier to buy your insurance, and you know, a lot of that is going to be driven by digital.
So just, I want to do like a takeaway here for what small businesses should be doing to get started, really for the first time. And again, we've had you saw all the acronyms that were in there, all the different offerings, and people are trying to figure out really what is the best way. Look, in the poll now we've got, it's the cyber attack and lawsuits are tied. And I think it's all about protection, right? When you're a small business, this is your livelihood. This is your life. And you're trying to protect, as another question is in here, your own personal finances. So when you're getting started for the first time, what do you need to make sure to do?
Yeah, I think it's being realistic around where you're happy to take risk and where you need that protection. Right? And as we've talked about and we've seen coming up in the chat, you know, there are a large number of insurance policies you could be purchasing. For me, talk to an expert if you need to understand more about this. Get the facts in front of you. Get some quotes for how much it's going to cost you. And then as a small business owner, understand what's important and where you want to take that. But I do think the core coverages just give small business so much protection against the risk which is out there, which can, you know, ultimately ruin the business and and ruin your dream. So start small, start simple, find a small business policy tailored to you.
And if you've already taken those first steps, what do you need to do to make sure that you actually are covered? Because as we talked about at the beginning, a lot of people have miscalculated their risk and don't realize what they need to be doing.
Yeah, and this comes back to the constant review or checking that your business hasn't changed since when you first purchased the policy. But look, any good carrier will take phone calls from you and you'll be able to discuss types of risk, especially if there's a scenario you're particularly concerned about, or you want to understand how your coverage is going to react in different situations. Now, insurance contracts are long and they are full of very, very technical legal terms. So find an expert, whether that's from the insurance carrier you bought your policy from, or if it's from an agent who can give you some advice as well. But a licensed advisor will help you understand where you have coverage and where you don't.
Great. That's all the time we have. Steve, thank you so much for walking us through this. I mean, and thank you everybody that asked questions as well. You guys had fantastic questions. It is something that a lot of people are trying to get their arms around. So excellent to be able to have this conversation with you. Thank you everybody for taking the poll. And thanks to Hiscox as well.